Who gets started? We are starting? Yes. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين الصلاة والسلام على رسولنا محمد وعلى آله وأصحابه وأتباعه وسلم. So inshallah today we will continue from 10th word, the second portion of it. It is going to talk about the truth. But before getting into the truth, the 12th truth, which is going to explain the meaning of the metaphor at the beginning, it talks about four indications. We talked about the first two. The first one was about denial of the creator versus a creator existing, and the second one was prophethood. Now, inshallah, today we will go through third and then fourth indication. Maybe we can even start with first truth. And we have Red to read us.
Inshallah. Would you like to read, Ali? He seems like he wants to read this time. Okay, let's start, inshallah. Bismillah. So we're on the third indication on page 74. Let it not be thought that petty man is too insignificant for this vast world to be brought to an end, and another realm to be unfolded simply for the sake of his being brought to account. For apparently, petty man bears great importance as the master of all creatures, by virtue of the comprehensiveness of his disposition, as the herald of God's monarchy and the manifester of universal worship. Also, let nobody ask, how can one earn eternal torment in the course of a very brief life? For unbelief seeks to drag creation, something as valuable and exalted as a letter written by God, down to the depths of meaninglessness and purposelessness. It is an insult to all being, since it denies and rejects the manifestations and impresses of God's sacred names that are visible in all being, and it seeks to negate all the infinite proofs that demonstrate the veracity and truthfulness of God Almighty. Hence, unbelief is a crime of infinite proportions, deserving of infinite punishment. Should we continue?
Let's pause here and get done with the third indication, and then inshallah we can move on to fourth. So, two questions he asked in the third indication. The first question was, as if the author is saying that do not even think about the question, but what is the question that the author considers to be? I know you will ask that question, but it's so clear of an answer exists as if there's the attribute. Says, well, the man is too insignificant of a creation compared to the whole universe. How come that for the man, the whole universe is going to be brought to an end, just so that human is going to be brought to account? Does the question sound reasonable, or what do you think? The whole universe is going to be closed or collapsed just so that man, another insignificant, not even a speck of dust in the entire universe, human, so the human is going to be brought to account, the whole universe is going to be closed. Come on, as if this is the attitude of the question. And the author says this is, you shouldn't even be asking that question because, and then he says, human is not a petty creature. Or in one sense, he might be a speck of dust, but in reality, he is much more important than that. Does the question resonate with anyone? Make sense or no? Good. So
like we hear this a lot, actually. Like sometimes not in that form, but whoever studies, let's say, cosmos, the first thing they would say, "Oh, we think humans are special, but actually we are not." And everything you see here around you, it's nothing, it's just, as you said, speck of dust, and you don't have anything special about you. You are just yet another species. Not even the, let's say, the best one. Because there's this constant evolution, let's say a few, maybe millions years from today, you will be just yet another ancient species. And there's also this critics of, like, when we, for instance, study this heliocentric versus, I don't remember the other one, like taking the sun as the center versus taking the earth as the center, right? So all these discussions about the solar system. So they are actually more than just, some cosmological arguments, meaning they are more than whether really Earth is at the center of the solar system or not. It is actually a discussion about whether can we take humanity as the central focus, central point of the explaining the universe or not. That's the discussion, actually. So when they, bring these the discussions about Galileo and his trial and so on, again, it's not about just the scientific curiosity at stake. It's about the religion taking human as so central. And as a scientist, I have this duty to destroy this worldview. It's not Earth that is central. Yes, I mean, physically, probably it's not, who cares? It's not Earth that is central, but it is something else. Meaning you humans, you're not special. Don't take yourself at the center of the universe. So I guess this is the same, on the same line. Like when we say, like when we prove there is a hereafter, for instance, our one premise, sometimes implicit, sometimes explicit, is that the human is so central. And author here is saying that, like, we took this premise as granted. But don't think we just blindly, take it as granted. There are all these reasons. And that's the reason, we're talking about, like, let's remember these stories. The two friends were talking, and the wise one was saying, like, don't you see the order around you? Don't you see that you can do everything here? You can even, harm things, and you are not punished. So it means there must be a realm that you will see the outcome or consequences of your actions. So with such an argument, you say that, what you do is significant. Your desires, your experience, significant. This is the premise. This is the assumption. An author here says, is this assumption is really true? Can we question even that this assumption? And he says, no, you cannot even question it because it is so true, or it is so obviously true. So what I'm trying to say, all these questions are not, very, let's say, insignificant, tiny questions like details. These are at the very center of everything.
By saying that human is petty, what we are saying actually is, so I am insignificant, therefore my mistakes are also insignificant. Why are you making too much of a fuss about it? So let me be myself. Nobody cares about me other than you and whatever your complicated constructions of claims. So I'm just an insignificant creature on my corner. I will live. What I do, just I will die, and that's going to be it.
And like, if you take it even further and take the entire, the world as from a mechanistic point of view, like things happening. Just like, there's sand and then the wind takes the sand from one place to another place. You don't talk about consequences. You don't talk about like the punishment or outcome of this action, right? The sand is moved from here to there. But that's it. Who cares? The same thing, when you do something, it is part of the mechanism. It is part of the, these universal laws governing all of us, or biological laws governing stuff like the biological entities like us. It just, it happens because it happens. Like you cannot talk about some consequences. You cannot talk about, what happened next, what happens next. Just like the sand moving from one place to another place, you killed one guy. So what?
So then that question has a lot of consequences. That says, and it sounds like if you think about it size-wise, yes, human is so insignificant than a speck of dust. But the author's perspective is different. His reasoning is different. So don't ask this. Why? Because apparently petty man bears great importance as the master of all creatures. Master of all creatures. Master in here is like a teacher over all of them. It's the master as in Master Yoda, like that sort of a master.
Ashanur is not here, so I just said she left. So you don't have to give examples from Star Wars. You can give any example.
So, for apparently petty man bears great importance as the master of all creatures by virtue of the comprehensiveness of his disposition as the herald of God's monarchy and the manifester of universal worship. So he used a few very loaded words. Let's talk about those words. He said 3 words. The first one was, or 3 duties he observed in human. The first one is, he said, human is master of all creatures. What does that mean? We observe this. Second is, by virtue of comprehensiveness of his disposition, the herald of God's monarchy.
Oh, this master of all creatures. What is the original? Ustabashu. Okay. Okay. So master in the sense that not owner. So that's the reason I asked. So we can take this master as owner. Oh, probably I shouldn't.
Character, leader, teacher. I think teacher or
Maybe teacher, but
the leader might be leader.
so Ustabashu is like chief, or like if you are building something, right? There's a hierarchy. There's this guy who knows about everything, and he teaches you, and then you are working. How would you call him?
Superior, supervisor.
Supervisor, maybe.
CEO.
Like, let's talk about like a construction of a building.
Senior engineer. Yeah.
Yes, something like that. The reason I ask, because you can take this, like when I read this, people may say, oh yeah, that's true. Like we govern, like we ruling the earth, we, controlling every creature and so on. Obviously, it's not talking about that.
Was Master Yoda governing anything?
Yeah.
I said Master Yoda.
Not for Aisha, but for the example.
Yes.
Excellent.
So, but like in English, maybe it's not clear, but checking with the Turkish, the 3, let's say 3 descriptions he makes is justified by by virtue of the comprehensiveness of his disposition. So this is the reasoning. Then he talks about those three aspects. So maybe we can first take this comprehensiveness of his disposition. And comprehensiveness of disposition, it might sound, well, the English sounds a little weird to me, but what he means by that is, disposition in here is the word fitra. So disposition means fitra. So he says, human is made comprehensive. Like, for example, what is the fitra of a lion? What is the fitra of a sparrow? What is the fitra of a stone, of a tree? Like, all of them has a fitra. And author is saying that human has a comprehensive fitra. This is why he is not a petty creature. And this reminds me of a, actually today in a lab, we are now working on a small chip, and that small chip was really, really small, like this small. And it is as comprehensive as what I was playing games in 1994, like this entire large computer that I play. Now it's in this small chip. So in terms of its comprehensiveness, this small chip is really corresponding to what I used to have as this giant desktop on 1994. So comprehensiveness in here of fitra of human has all those qualities that you can observe in the rest of the creation. So that's why I think this is the important part, comprehensiveness of his fitra. And because of this, he says, human is master of all creatures, herald of God's monarchy, and manifester of universal worship. Now let's talk about this. Does it sound okay to you? What do you think? I guess maybe master of all creatures, it might make sense, or at least on the surface, it makes sense to me. Like human is better than sparrows, because when I look at a sparrow, what I feel like is there's this quickness and fear. Like quickness and fear is whenever I look at a sparrow, this is what I feel. When I see a lion, I see courage and strength. Human can also be courageous and strong. Let's say when I see a say cat, I see a certain behavior. Human has this. When I see a dog, has a certain behavior, personality type. Human has this. You see a stone, you see a tree, you see all those qualities being present in human. So when it says comprehensive, and in the sense of being master of all creatures, it makes sense to me. Would you like to add anything on top of that? Like human is not insignificant in this regard, really. Human is as if whatever you observe being manifest in the rest of the creation is being manifest on a single human. Like you read the names of the creator in a lion, in sun, in moon, in water, you can read all those names in a human. Would you agree with that?
Seems pretty intuitive if we're comparing to other creatures, but I'm not sure about the other.
Yeah. What is herald of God's monarchy?
To recognize God's kingdom.
In a comprehensive way.
Yeah.
Right? So for example, does a bird calls people to God's kingdom?
Possibly.
Right?
Yeah.
What do you think? Birds, are they heralds of God's monarchy?
I think so.
You think?
Yeah.
How?
Because how else are they, floating in the air like that? How do they do that? Do they carry themselves up there? They control the air, the wind. I don't know.
But that's more of being from their existence rather than from them themselves. I
I
mean,
think their existence itself is a herald.
This is what it is, right? With the tongue of their disposition, like they're not speaking English or Turkish or Arabic, but they still if you like, with their body language, they are
Mhm.
speaking that look at me. If you look at some beautiful, what's it, the bird that we have seen,
There's a hawk, peregrine, falcon,
like this beautiful one with the nice
Peacock.
the swan.
Peacock.
Oh, okay.
right? So what does a peacock say, for instance, when you look at a peacock?
Ah,
It's looking for a mate. It's the male peacock. He's looking for a mate. He has these pretty colors, and it's an evolutionary.
Evolution. So with its tongue of disposition, it is saying that my maker is so much knows about the colors, so has a taste of art, so beautiful, and it's like he has a super tiny brush to utmost details he can paint. So it's all a declaration of God's monarchy. But in a certain sense, it doesn't. Like, for example, a bird, I don't know, is not maybe too good of a way to, like a peacock is, in terms of beauty, it is like Jamal, but when it comes to Jalal, maybe like this glory in the sense of a harshness, for instance, a peacock is not too much of a herald for that. It's more of a nice picture. But when you come to a lion, then you see this other aspect in a lion, or maybe in a thunder, or in a tornado. The human is a hero in which he is aware of it, he or she's aware of it, what's going on, consciously observing all of them and declaring all of them. And I guess when a human being herald, the first thing comes to my mind is also Prophet ﷺ, like someone among human did this job so much so that we can say, if the rest of the humanity didn't do it, one came out of them who made it to utmost degree that the whole humanity can be proud of this, saying that at least we have such a herald among us. Actually, the whole creation would be proud of him in this sense, saying that within us there is such a creation, such a human. In this regard, him being a herald is, I guess, by itself a proof of that statement. Just looking at that single example shows that such a thing have existed. So this is proof by example. And manifesto of universal worship, how about that?
no, this one I'm kind of confused because when we talk about how, like, I'm not sure the exact ayah, but I think it's like mentioned that like the animals and the trees, they all perform sajda, the stars or something like that, towards their Lord. And
Tasbih, right?
tasbih or sajda, I forgot which one. Yeah, something like that.
I think
It's in
they do all
a form of
tasbih,
remembrance.
yeah.
Yeah. So they do that like unconditionally, whereas we are struggling to do that. So in what way would humanity be more comprehensive in the sense of universal worship?
So, like, if we question that way, we could also say the same thing, I guess, for the first one as well, like the herald of God's monarchy. There are many people, including us, most of the time. We're not talking about God. Like, we're not, let's say, announcing his greatness or so on. We're not being herald of his monarch. But I think the way author takes is like when he says, by virtue of comprehensiveness of his disposition, like even if you deny God, you are a herald of God.
By fitrah.
By fitrah, yes. Like even if you are a denier, I look at you and the things I see in you, the way you look, the way you can speak, like the fact that you can sense something. the fact that you are curious about black holes at the other end of the universe. It all tells me about the God's monarchy. To me, maybe not to you yourself, like you are wasting your own capital, but I am benefiting from it. So you are being a herald to me. I guess the same way. So manifestor of the universal worship, even if you are a denier, even if you are not putting your head on sajda explicitly, just by being hungry and asking for food and then eating the food and feeling badly good, you are worshiping. Well, everything you do is worship. Because there is no other explanation for a believer who is looking at you. That you are worshiping 7/24. Right? So everything you do is a worship.
Whether you consciously attribute it to any specific thing, you are. Worship.
Yes, and I guess there are also people who are doing it consciously. So we also have this example as well, the conscious worship.
Yeah.
So I guess one can say the human is like the locus, or this is like a focal point of worship. Every kind of worship that you can think of, a human being would manifest it, show it.
And I guess also in the line of what we are discussing on Tuesdays for the past couple of weeks, this we over there, when we say we do worship, so human is given this potentiality. Actually, if you look at it, human's disposition, human's fitra, like for instance, if you were in a room of children and you're the only adult in the room, so you will find yourself automatically entrusted with the job of safety of the children. You will start feeling it, right? So because of your age and your, let's say, being more mature intellectually, physically, and whatnot,
If you are.
you will find it as if on your shoulders. So due to comprehensiveness of humans' fitra in the creation, to the extent that I become conscious of it, I will find myself responsible and equipped with displaying the worship of the rest of the creation to my creator. And when we say we do worship to you in Fatiha, what we mean by that is, I do observe that they are worshiping, I am also worshiping, but this is a congregational worship. We all worship you, and if possible, I would love to be giving or doing as much of worship as they do. Like the way, I think this is more of a, comes from Sufi tradition. I don't know where it comes from, Sufi tradition from, but let's say if a poor person goes to the court of the king and sees that everybody brought something to the king, and king doesn't need anything, so he's not really in need of any gift, but he is accepting gift from the people just to see their good intention or
Loyalty.
their loyalty. A poor person comes and sees that, oh, everybody brought so much better gifts and he's just bringing almost nothing because he's so poor. Then he says, if I was able to, I would love to bring all those, whatever they brought, I am giving all of them to you, except from me. And the king says, I mean, he's not in need of anything anyways, but he accepts from this poor person all that is given in there. So this is, what is that person doing? So he has this comprehensiveness of his nature. He is able to understand all their worship, and he has this as if so comprehensive of humanity in there, which says, I would love to give that as well. Like he has this sort of a big intentional heart, however you would like to put it. And this is what we are doing, or we are invited to do in Fatiha when we say, İyyâke na'budu ve iyyâke nestaîn. So to you alone we worship, and from you alone we seek help. This we being said in here is this universal worship. So I am adding the worship of everything, every being in existence to my worship and hand it over to my creator, saying that mine is just a speck of dust. But if I would be possible, I would love to worship as much as sun does, moon does, sand in the desert does. So this is, I think, another way to take this universal worship. And man is given this disposition, this fitra. But of course, I might be not using this. I might be just saying that, okay, it's my prayer. And although I utter we in my prayer, by we I only mean me. Or maybe by we I mean, well, yes, I and my eyes and my ears and like just this body of me. There are a lot of layers of that we, but potentially that we can encapsulate the whole creation, like the comprehensiveness.
Universal
Or the
worship.
universalness can be universal in the sense of the whole universe, or it might be, if my universe is only this much, my body, then that much. So it really depends how vast I can become, or my conscience, or my consciousness expands.
So is it also like a matter of choice, like the fact that human beings have choice? When like the worship of a bird, like an example you gave, it's more one-dimensional. Like their existence is the worship. Like because they don't have choice, they can't. There's no additional form of worship that they're doing. Where a human being, like in every choice that you're making, you have the option for that to be in alignment with the will of Allah or against it. So every choice becomes an opportunity for you to expand the worship that you're doing and to, like you're saying, expanding your universe, almost like making your whole life comprehensive with worship.
So even though we might not be as automatically inclined, as automatically, what was the term again? Yeah, automatically worshiping as, let's say, some other types of creation, but the fact that we have the choice to recognize that kind of worship means that we can encompass that recognition into our own worship.
So I guess we can worship unconsciously, maybe better than a bird does. If you're talking about our unconscious worship. Because bird sings, I mean, you can sing, maybe they cannot, but I mean, think
Oh, I
like
think it's very beautiful. Ask Bushra.
that. So our unconscious, even that applies to an atheist who denies, yet his disposition is still, as Birkan was saying, a worship, and can be considered universal in the sense that it displays multiple different aspects of the creator. But when we talk about universality in the sense of being consciously observing all other creation worships, including it in yours, like realizing you being a Khalifa in this case, and then seeing the whole universe as like worshippers in a mosque, or the circling around Kaaba, like this sort of the whole universe is all one, turning towards Qibla, the same Qibla, Tawheed is everywhere. So, I mean, actually, this is one of the beautiful reasons that human is given imagination. Just in your imagination, observe the creation to be circling around Kaaba. And there are such narrations, like angels are making tawaf on the skies. Like, have you heard narrations like that?
Mhm.
So angels making tawaf around skies, what does this mean? So actually you can see the whole creation turning around Tawheed. Everything points to Tawheed by their tongue of disposition. Every bird is actually, when they chirp, if I listen with that ear, I would say that they are making tasbih. They are all pointing to the same or turning around the same truth, which is Tawheed. Then consciously observing this, I join to this congregation, be part of that congregation, and make my supplication as we rather than I. So this is another way to see the whole creation as. That's why Hajj is so comprehensive of the worship. This is why congregational prayers are encouraged so that we observe this or we get used to this in creation and in our personal lives, like social circle, and then include the creation also in that. Is it only us humans that are praying? Because when Rusi talks about this noon, the letter we in Fatiha, he first takes it as you can imagine all the people in Philadelphia, not only in this mosque, but as if all the people in Philadelphia are on the same masjid. So just expand it. Around the world, people are around Kaaba, they make circles and they pray. So this can be part of your we, but then he says, well, go down, your particles. When you say we, you're talking about all those particles or pieces of your body. Says then go up, greater than humanity, like all the let's say moons, stars, and everything is still circulating around the same truth. They are worshipping. So when you say we, from subatomic particles to galaxies, you can talk about all the creation which are obeying the command of the creator. And the we is part of that, as if collecting all of them and saying that here, oh my creator, I am giving it to you, accept it from me. So this comprehensiveness is humans. So now thinking about it this way, realizing that I am this elderly in this room of children, I am entrusted with this duty. The human is given this much of a comprehensive understanding of the creation. So it's not just something extra, it is also a duty that is given to human by its disposition. So if I'm the only adult in the room and then children start hitting each other and I just watch it, and then the parents come and say, why didn't you stop them? And I say, well, they're kids. Not my children. Not my children, like I'm on my own. I would say, well, I mean, you have given this intellect, you have given this consciousness. Shame on you. Shame on you. How dare you didn't do it? So you're not a simple petty creature who are supposed to be sitting on that corner. So this is why I think we cannot simply say, well, I'm just a small thing.
So maybe just a little bit expanding this idea of worship. So the root is abd, right? Ubudiyya, ibadah. It's always abd. And so when we say worship, I guess we shouldn't only think about worship in the sorry?
In the ritualistic sense.
Yes, in the ritualistic sense, which includes ritualistic sense. Like the rituals we perform is probably like the, what is it called? The climax of being abd. So they are important. But when we say worship, it's more inclusive. So probably, one way to understand the worship or ubudiyya is they understand the opposite or in relationship with the opposite, which is rububiyya, Rabb, Abd, Rabb. So when you need something, when you are needy and your need is sustained, answered, then you are in this relationship of Abd and Rabb. You need something and your need is sustained. You want something and your desire is fulfilled. So when you are in such a relationship, that means you are worshiping. So even if you are not doing it consciously, like the fact that you breathe and your need is sustained, you are taken care of, and you cannot do it yourself, right? You need to be sustained. So that means you are a worshiper. You submit yourself to the robness of, what is the English form? Sustaining or sustenance of the sustainer. So a rock, for instance, is a worshipper by its, for instance, the mere existence. It exists and it cannot exist itself. That means it's worshiping. It's asking for existence, and existence is given to him. If an animal or a plant worship in a more comprehensive way than a rock. And what I mean with the more comprehensive, it means it manifests more needs, and more needs are sustained. With plant, for instance, it needs to generate energy. It needs to use this energy. It needs to replicate or reproduce. All these different needs are sustained. So it means the plant is asking, and the asking is answered, and the what is asked for is given. So this is a worship. So when we look at a human being, again, the worship is more expanded now, a little bit more expanded, because we have more desires, more needs, infinitely many needs, infinitely many desires. All of them are sustained. So we have more comprehensive worship. And then on top of that comes the conscious worship. So no matter whether you are doing it consciously or not, you are always a worshiper just by, being something alive or existing, being healthy, being good looking or ugly, having one arm or two arms, having an illness or health, you are a worshiper. Otherwise, you cannot explain what you see. Like, how do you explain a plant is growing, for instance? The only explanation is the plant is, through its time of disposition, asking for growth. This is what we say in, for instance, in science, we say this growth is in its genes. Right? We say. So it's the same thing. It means there is this potential there. Asking. So this is what I mean with asking. Again, it's not necessarily with the tongue, right? By having this capacity in its genes, it's asking, I have this capacity, my Lord. Give me the outcome of it. And it is fulfilled. This is a worship. So when we study genes, and when we see that certain traits or certain, the outcomes encoded there, it tells us that there's a worship relationship between this plant or human being and the Lord, sustainer. I think I have some questions, but I don't want to go first. Since I'm not moderator, I can tell him to share these questions, but I think he has some questions. Any questions? Any comments? Yeah.
And then comes the second question that the author says, let it not be thought. As he says, I know you lost that question, but still it is a question not worth mentioning in reality, but we won't mention it anyway, so let me talk about it. How can one earn eternal torment in the course of a very brief life? How much wrong can you do in 60 years? Well, that's
Do a lot of
You can what?
you can do a lot of wrong in 60 years.
Oh, okay.
So,
But I like it. We're talking about hell, right?
yeah.
And the way it is depicted in Quran.
Eternal.
It's like, isn't it overkill?
Yeah, you could
Like for a tiny human being.
possibly.
And even Quran talks about people of hell saying, well, or like some people saying they're going to burn a few years and that's going to be it. Because our crime is for a certain time, therefore punishment should be for a certain time. Like, let it be billion years. Still, relative to eternal life, billion years is what? A few years here and there. Right.
And like it is a great point because in religion, in Islam, there's this rule of equivalence, right? Like you cannot give a punishment to someone which is more than or even less than maybe of the crime. Like it has to be in the same kind and proportional. And then you are saying that, you live 60 years here and then go to the hell for eternity. Like it's contradictory to your own rules.
How can one earn eternal torment in the course of a very brief life? And let's say the Creator is just and he will give eternal punishment, injustice. But then the question is, how is it that in a limited time you're going to score that many, like infinite score? What can you do? Is the question. And his answer is, for unbelief seeks to drag creation, something as valuable and exalted as a letter written by God, down to the depths of meaninglessness and purposelessness. Unbelief seeks to drag creation down to the depths of meaninglessness and purposelessness. What's creation? Something as valuable and exalted as a letter written by God. It is an insult to all being, since it denies and rejects the manifestations of and impressions of God's sacred names that are visible in all being, and it seeks to negate all the infinite proofs that demonstrate the veracity and truthfulness of God Almighty. Hence, unbelief is a crime of infinite proportions, deserving of infinite punishment. Denial is not a quantifiable crime, or says. I didn't kill a man, I just denied God. One would say, right? Oh, I didn't steal. I didn't kill anyone. I didn't bomb anywhere. I just said I don't believe in God. That's all it is. So, what is denial? And how is it that denial is a crime? Actually, it's unquantifiably big of a crime. Why?
Like even like when you say crime, like by definition, like if you take the definition of crime from our secular, the books, then what you do is not even a crime. Like you're not doing anything. You're not harming the creation. So, for instance, if you are a humanitarian atheist, let's say, right? If you are denying God but helping everyone, this is not a crime. Like you're not harming any creation even if even if it is true that it is a creation. So, like, maybe we should start from why it is a crime to begin with.
Actually, the first thing is dragging creation to meaninglessness and purposelessness. Actually, it seems like, at least according to the author, it's a crime against creation in the first place, is it? That by dragging creation to meaninglessness, is it a crime against the creation also? Like a humanitarian atheist, by saying that I am atheist, what sort of a crime is that atheist making towards creation? What do you think? Any idea?
And spreading this disbelief beyond just themselves. I mean, it's causing chaos in the world. It's causing chaos in people's lives. Causing chaos in the universe. It's like somebody saying that I just lit a match. I didn't do anything wrong. I lit a match. Yeah, the entire forest caught on fire and it burned down and spread to the city and burned down people's homes. I just did it.
But not all unbelievers are like, vocal, yeah. Like there are people who don't believe, but just even pretend as if they are believer because of the the oppression from the family or the society, especially if you are living in a so-called religious country. So what happens if you are living in Iran and then you are atheist? You just probably just shut up and pretend as if you are a religious person.
I think just because we're social beings.
So
I think just because we're social beings, like you're, even if you're not vocal with it, you're creating this like norm that spreads beyond you. I mean, I don't know how
I
to
guess that's possible, but he is expanding it to creation, not only humans. Like you said, this unbelief is a
Insult to all creation.
insult to all creation.
Okay, this makes me think of the notion of istighfar, right? Of seeking forgiveness and how
put it backwards.
I seek forgiveness. And we come across narrations that might say, something along the lines of the Prophet ﷺ would seek forgiveness the entirety of the night, right? Or engage in istighfar. And that poses the question of like, why? What was he seeking forgiveness for? And so when we think of istighfar as not just an act, but a state of being, as this continuous repentance, we have to then think about what are we repenting due to or from. And I guess that's related to this notion that every moment of my life that I don't connect to the Creator as given, as manifested, full of His qualities, I am in fact in a position where I have to seek forgiveness. Because if I am not attributing it to Him, I must be attributing it to something else. It doesn't, I don't live in a void of any sort. And so, and that goes from like, every fleck of a strawberry that I see, to every interaction that I have, to every single leaf that I might look at, and what do I attribute it to in that moment? And most of the time, like, I don't attribute it to God, it's only one, it's so, let's say, even then it's not the case, but let's say it's so obvious with fall and the colors that we're like, oh my God, subhanAllah, it's amazing, God created it. But in these sort of not infinite, but like continuous moments of my life, I'm constantly disconnected, requiring a constant state of trying to return to Him. And so then when you have this sort of, and that's even when I, like, let's say, try to be a conscious believer. But then when there's a sort of intentionality of disbelieving, of denying rather, then you're purposefully saying, no, this, like all of it is meaningless. And I guess that's where the part of it of being an insult comes, right? Because every single thing is very blatantly reflecting the qualities of its maker. And yet for each of them, I'm saying, nope, this is trash. This is meaningless. This is by itself. And so like, just to me, how it makes sense is when I try to fathom of like every single thing that I've ever observed in my life, like it is, I can't really quantify it. And in that sense, like then unbelief is again unquantifiable as well.
Yes, exactly. That things are valuable, and I declare them to be valueless. So I guess just to make it more intuitive, I'm going to give that example. Say if you see a high-ranked official of, let's say, United States Army, the guy walks in, and let's say 5 generals walk into this room, and I say, I don't accept United States as a legit government. I deny United States as a government. Those generals become regular people. Because they are general as long as United States is a government and has an army, and those people have the rank within that army. But I am denying the whole country. I don't care about your people. I don't care about I don't recognize you as a government, as a country. So all your ranks and everything goes into trash. You're nothing. So by denial, I'm not only denying the creator, I am creating all the meaning and the value that appears by relative to the creator. A bird or sun becomes, let's say, sun becomes manifestation of the illuminator, becomes a herald of, and Nur, if I recognize Nur, the creator of light and everything, like Nur is much beyond that. If I deny Nur, what does sun become? It's just a fireball. It's not a herald. It's
Waiting
just
to destroy me.
Yeah, and one day it itself is going to die, and it can kill me. I am in need of it, yet if I get close, it's going to burn me. So it's like this sort of a weird relationship. Now I end up being with the sun. So I might be a super environmentalist, yet by saying that I deny God, I am reducing sun from being a herald of creator into a meaningless being. I am actually making a crime against sun.
So I think just like just like worship, when we say it doesn't need to be conscious, I guess the crime is also needs to be a crime in the sense that you killing something or destroying something just physically. So I guess one way of taking it as creator is telling us that like there are 2 options in front of you. You can either enjoy the mercy and love in the creation. You can do that, and you will find yourself in heaven. Or you deny all the mercy, all the compassion, all the love in the creation, the fact that everything is helping to you, the fact that there's a sun on top of you to illuminate you, to warm you up. You can deny all these things, And what you will end up with is just darkness. And everything will be enemy of yours. And you will find yourself in a constantly burning fire. It's not like, oh, you didn't, acknowledge my name, then I will burn you. It's like warning. It's saying that you will find yourself in such a situation. And when we look at our lives, like when we deny God, what it means, like astaghfirullah, like we don't deny God in that, like in one sense. But as Ayşenur was saying, like when I don't things to my creator, when I don't take these, tiny microscopic creatures, the viruses, as the, what is the word? Not soldiers, but maybe soldiers, let's say. And what, like someone in duty. Agents, okay. Like, I don't want to say soldier because it becomes like a
Servant.
servants, yes, okay. When we don't take these viruses as servants, obeying some command of the all-merciful one. When we don't see them as such, what we do, we scare. And we scare so much that our life becomes like a hell. It becomes so dark that we don't know what will happen tomorrow. What happens if I forget to put my mask on grocery store? I'm doomed. This is how we live. Like, putting mask is good, but being so anxious about it, it's not good. And this is what will happen to your life, Creator says. Everything will attack to you, will be an enemy of yours. Whatever you see, you will be scared of them. Because you will think they are acting by their self, like on their half. You would say, oh, what if this virus, or what if this dog, or what if this plant or sun just hates me and attacks me? It's just one thing out of everything, right? It can happen. You cannot just assume that every virus following an order. You would say maybe one of them will not, and it will attack me, and it is, enough to kill me. So that will become your life, Creator says. You will find yourself in hell. There won't be anything that you can stand, that you can rely on. This is hell. Sun will be your enemy. One day it will destroy you. The aliens that you don't even know, you're not sure about their existence, they will be your enemy. And the so-called biggest minds of the earth will start thinking about what will happen when aliens invade us.
We have an alien problem in US.
Oh, that's another one, yeah. Oh, there's like a comment. Oh, okay. It's from, yeah.
I'll jump in.
Yeah, please.
And I don't. It's gonna be short. I'll jump in to say that when we approach it from that way, of like experiencing hell here and now, alongside the after, like there are moments where we'll say my despair is immeasurable, right? We do sort of see it as something that can't be measured, like it's infinite, or I'm plunged in infinite despair. Like these are, we experience that.
So that's a great point. So when, for instance, Quran says that you will burn like it's so hard, it's not an exaggeration. This is how we feel from moment to moment. Like we find ourselves in a position as if the entire world is collapsed. Entire universe is collapsed. So we are so miserable. So anyway, these are not exaggeration. This is as if creator is telling me that this is what happens with you, Birkan. Like, you have two options again. Why don't you choose the good one?
So this was one. So it is an insult to whole creation. Then the second one is a denial of divine names. And the third one was denial of all the manifestation of divine names. So as if he's saying that at 3 layers, you are denying things. Because when we think about crime, we think about as if demolishing, killing. And he is saying, in terms of meaning, why? What is it that you're demolishing? Are you aware of that? You're demolishing the meaningfulness and purposefulness of the creation. Then also divine names. It's a crime against divine names. So the first one was it's a crime against creation. Now it's a crime against the divine. So is this quantifiable? Because the question was, it's a like a limited time crime I am doing. But as if the author is saying that even making a crime of that scale for a moment is an infinite crime. So it's not about accumulation of finite crimes in a finite amount of time. Because at any moment it's an infinite crime.
Yeah, and I think that's such an important point, because oftentimes, like even both in popular culture as well as like within Muslim communities, we will sort of like have a point system in our head, right? We'll be like, oh, this is so many good deeds, like you're gonna it's like it's a sort of bank account of like good deeds and bad deeds, and this is going to add to it, this is going to wipe some away, so make sure you pray extra that night. I mean, we turn it into this like point system, and then we see it displayed as a point system in, you know, shows and otherwise. And it's funny, as we were reading this, I thought of there was this popular paper that was written, and it was called like, regardless of whatever it was called, it was about like this person making the argument that it's so ambiguous, the point in which one person becomes deserving of hell versus deserving of heaven. Let's say they were right on the threshold and they missed it by just a point. Are they as deserving of hell as the person that missed it by a bazillion points? You know, they get this, and like people were like, "Oh my God, this is such an amazing argument," and you know, it's all dependent on how we caricaturize, really, like superficially treat these notions, these concepts. And I was thinking, you know, at the khutbah that I was at today, the Imam was saying, you know, we learn about what Tawheed means in, let's say, Sunday school when we're 5, 6 years old. Oh, like God is one. But now I'm like 46 and you still expect me to have the same understanding? Or like we all have the same understanding? Like, why is this the case? How are we okay with this? And that's the same, you know, it applies to everything else as well. So I wanted to add that.
Very true. Is sort of numbers. Or to explain it maybe to a level, it's okay, but imagining it to be this, like in Turkey, we have this concept of you go to the markets, you don't pay money, they just write it to a ledger. And pretty much like credit card. This was before the invention of credit card.
Based on trust.
Based on trust. So, and we might be imagining this good deeds, bad deeds business as, oh yeah, I bought 5 kilo of meat, so it's going to be that much. I mean, I just bought 1 chewing gum. Come on, it's not going to cost as much. So the same idea with good deed, bad deed business, making it in terms of numbers. If I think of it as such, then I would ask the question, come on, it's just a limited life, limited crime. Why shall it be eternal? No. The author is saying that it is not limited crime. Unbelief is an unlimited crime, regardless of time.
And regardless of the, let's say, the reputation, like every time you disbelieve, you committing this like a infinitely strong crime, heavy crime. Every time you deny God, you find yourself in hell. And then you repent, and then you're taken away.
And as you highlight rightfully, it's, I mean, logically we can see that it's an infinite crime, but also its consequences on earth as I am living. The Creator immediately responds back saying that the outcome of this attitude is this dark world, and I will leave you in this consequence. So it's very beautiful that the consequence is being created to us. The dark world that I live in, that I start sensing, like if I find myself in a world in which I have to indefinitely compete to rise, let's say, the steps to better life, or when I look at life in Philadelphia, all crimes are in increase and what's going to happen, all sorts of such issues, to the extent that I start getting under stress for that. Actually, this is taste of hell. What is it that's making me see the picture so dark? Because as if I do not see mercy in there, I do not see wisdom in there, I don't see light in there. This is hell. So this, the Creator says, I will make you start tasting it. Okay, so this was the third indication. Any further comments, questions? What's it?
Maybe a comment just about
Okay.
like the duration of the test. I think just to comment on like the questioning of why such a short life will base the entire ruling. I think it's also making like a false assumption that things would have changed if that duration was longer. But Allah has obviously told us that somebody has not turned back to him in that period of time, he knows that they would continue if they were given unlimited time. And I think that's also like just exactly like perfectly demonstrated in the reality that when somebody turns to Islam, all the previous sins are forgiven. It almost goes to show like those sins Allah was gonna do away with. Like all of that was just preparation for their life as a Muslim. So that's why those sins can so quickly be tossed away, because they were just part of getting that person to that step. It was just a preparation for that. So I think that goes to show you that life, Allah understands that whatever duration of the life that He's given to a person, that's the duration of the test that they need to determine that result, that judgment.
Actually, we can confirm all these. Like this narrations explain us this thing, and actually we can confirm this by our experience as well. For example, this forgiveness. Do I sense this forgiveness? Like as if all the darknesses in the past got like erased, or even yubaddilullahu sayyi'atin hasanatin. So their bad deeds are converted into good deeds. So do we sense this, for example? Do you observe this? With a conscious choice of making that flip, actually, all your past experiences of darkness can now serve as a source of light for you. And the Creator, I mean, we do experience in our lives, let's say, oh, I sense the depths of the darkness of unbelief, let's say to a certain point in my life, and then I made my choice not to deny and admit the truth. And all those darknesses now serve to me as a reference point for how light the truth is. that darkness is now, right now, is helping me to appreciate the truth more. The sayyi'at at that time now becomes part of my hasanat. And I can confirm and bear witness to truthfulness of that verse when it says, we converted their bad deeds to good deeds. I said, yes, it's talking about me. If I choose truth, my Creator truly converts my bad deeds into good deeds and make me taste it right here as well. So this is why, like reading Quran as guidance. So if I'm having questions about it, what am I going to do? I did something wrong. The Creator says, I converted them to good deeds. So because of your choice, is it so really? Yes. Don't you experience it? You did something wrong in your past. And right now with the new lens that you accepted adopting, the bad things that you did in the past is now working in your favor.
Guiding you away from the same kind of even bigger sins.
And making you appreciate the truth more. And you're becoming more strong in the truth that you follow. And when we talk about this, like Umar radiallahu anhu's example comes to mind. He, in multiple occasions, he reminded Sahaba of their old days, saying that we used to be burying our daughters alive. So how were we back then? And now that makes them realize what sort of a gift and light Iman is today. Now they're much more appreciative of it. Probably somebody who is born into that Sahaba society, let's say, who have never experienced Jahiliyyah, I mean, they have been on this light environment. For them, this is the norm. But for Umar radiallahu anh, remembering the old, its light is much more appreciable.
Like, I think this is extremely important. When you say, for instance, all the sins were part of their training or test, you said, I don't remember the word. But I think this concept is so important because like it becomes meaningful when we accept that when you do wrongdoing, like when you do something wrong, you feel the consequences of it one way or another. You know what it means. You taste it and you know how bad taste it is. You don't want to taste it anymore. So sometimes, Aisha, my wife, she wants me to do something, let's say very simple, normal, let's say. But I refuse. I say, no, I can't even get close to it. She would say, why? Because once upon a time I did it and I didn't stop there and I know what it leads. So I don't want to, taste it again. I mean, it's not haram. It's not something forbidden. It's not something, bad, but I know what it leads me. So I don't want to even, get close to it. So it makes me, steadfast with my, Iman, just in this tiny example. So strong that, I kind of appreciate these old times that I did all these mistakes. Because of them, because I tasted the darkness, because I've tasted, this hell, I said, no, I don't even, get close to it anymore. So I think this is so real. Hence, we can say, as author says, when you do something wrong, it's not just denying the existence of God or something. It's like hurting yourself. And hurting yourself so bad that it is your choice. So the question is then not that, what did I do to deserve this hell. It's not something external. You do something and then as a punishment, hell is given to you. what you do has hell in it already. And this is what you chosen. What you choose. Okay. So anyway, this is, what you wanted. So, the concept of crime, concept of hell, or, bad deed, good deed, I guess these are so important to understand at least what is told here, and also what Quran tells us. If we take it as a point system or something, an external punishment, like it would be okay if you didn't get this punishment, but creator being cruel, astaghfirullah, said that no, I will put you in hell. It's not that way. It's so intrinsic to things. It's so internal.
Shall we stop here? Any closing remarks? جزاك الله خير. سبحانك لا علم لنا إلا ما علمتنا إنك أنت العليم الحكيم وآخر دعواهم